What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. As always, I'm excited today to release the new bumper band 1H AI and 1H Max. These are just incredible trading tools. I've been developing the AI versions of my indicators for the last several months, more than several months, last half a year or more. And yeah, just exciting when I get to finally release something. As always, when things are first released, they are still fairly newly tested. I've done as much testing as I can, obviously, but I also want to get the indicators out there in people's hands so they can use them and give me some feedback. So when you are using these tools, just please bear in mind there could be some small bugs here and there, and please let me know if you ever experience any. I want to just jump into some of the details because they are slightly different than the 30 version. I kind of want every indicator that I release to be slightly different in function and take advantage of the market in different ways and use a little bit of different ideas and tools. So, that's kind of the idea behind the 1H. It is very similar in a lot of ways as on the foundational tool as the 1H that's already out there that people have been probably using, and the quantum wave bands tool. If you are a user of the quantum wave bands, that is a much more user-friendly, beginner-friendly system. You don't have to have the skeleton key full version to trade those, so that might be appealing to someone that is just dipping their toes in. If you are a more advanced trader or looking for more advanced tools, something like this would be much more for you. And yeah, so let's dive in. There's a similar, like if you've taken some time and watched some YouTube videos, I would suggest if you have not seen the 30-minute or the last few videos, just go back and watch some of those, because a lot of these tools I'll explain. There's the on-pain table here that is part of the Max band. And it's pretty helpful if you are trying to do a little bit more hand trading or just kind of, have a little bit of nice visual going on there. This chart right now is back tested to 2015 to current present day. And you can see the max drawdown is 25, which I've said this many times. It's not exactly indicative of the worst drawdown you will ever see, because this is based on the returns in your account when the drawdown happens. So for example, over here in, what would this probably be, 2015, 2016, it went from, you can see here on the left, 220, around 228-ish to 200. So that's 28. That's already higher than the max drawdown. So that's 28. Now I'm sure if we were to zoom in on that a few months there, Bitcoin probably went on a really awful dump right there. So I have found that most of the times you see a drawdown, it's generally better than what happens in the market, which is good. That's kind of like the underlying thing that I shoot for when I'm creating tools and strategies, is to at least not pull back as bad as the market does. And that way, keeps users a little bit more safe. But anyway, so this is the full, it's a little bit of kind of clickbaity, hypey excitement for the top of the video. Incredible profit percent right there. If we look just, more generally at the last 5 years, it's still done really, really well. And you could see it pretty, like it had a really big jump over here, probably in, what would that have been, 2021, 2021, yeah, 21 had 20 and 21 had some massive run-ups, obviously, but still slow and steady up pace ever since then. It is really important to note, again, like I'll try to find some of the worst trading ranges and kind of compare them to a chart. So for example, here you can see I just marked off some really bad dumps that happened here. This is not a bad dump, but this is where the strategy pulled back. So it's kind of interesting sometimes to see the strategy did a pretty bad pullback over here, and then it also did one here, which the Bitcoin itself did not really dump that hard. It just kind of had a slow and steady downtrend, probably a decent amount of volatility in that. And so sometimes when Bitcoin just goes on a straight dump, the bumper bands will take a loss and then stay out of trades for a while. So you might really stay out of hope. The hope is you stay out of some of those massive losses, but it will take some losses. But if it's a slow and steady downtrend, I'm sure that was kind of nasty here too. A lot of times the bumper bands tools will take a little bit heavier of losses. So let me go back into this window here, and we'll just look at February of 2020. I'm just going to do a little back test there to look at that month. We'll just do February 1 to maybe March 31st or something like that, just to get a little bit of context of what was going on. So we're doing February and March, and you can see just those 2 months was really nasty for the bumper bands tools. You can see that obviously Bitcoin itself pulled back quite a bit more. So it had almost a 50%, or actually over 50% pullback, and the worst pullback here was it 20, almost 20? Yeah, so that's not even exactly right, because if I look here, I can see the bottom peak right here was about 29%, 28.5%. So it did, still did have a pretty nasty pullback. And if you're trading at 3x leverage, like that's super nasty. So yeah, let me just go ahead and try to. I'm just gonna do the 3x leverage kind of thing. 30,000, and let's see what the realistic drawdown in your account would have been. I mean, this would have been awful. I guess, see, that's not even quite right. Would have been more than 54%. I'm pretty sure that doesn't seem quite right. Right here. Duh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. The loss would have been 54%. The drawdown to your account would have been 75%, which is awful. So it's obviously not something that you want to be trading through. However, if you were able to trade through that and keep holding on, Bitcoin went up. Yeah. This 2,000%, I guess if you're trading, the upside is if you're trading at 3x leverage and letting it go through all of these awful downturns, the returns are much better, but yeah, you have to be willing to go through that. So a lot of times I will personally trade at 3x leverage, but if I take a certain amount of losses in my account, I will pause it for a little bit. Sometimes I'll actually, if I think the market is just doing some corrections and it's not a bear market, I'll actually scale in a little bit more. But these are all things you have to be really, really wise about and think through, because sometimes you can scale in and then the bear market keeps going and you can keep losing more. So I've found in the past it's important to actually wait for some really, and find an average pullback that I'm waiting for and scale in, and not just wait for a loss or two, because a lot of times, again, if you're experiencing a pullback or a bear market, a loss or two just is the beginning. So I might wait if an average pullback over a bunch of times I've looked at was like 15%, 20%. I'll wait for about that amount of pullback before I scale in heavier. Okay, so that's the general. I kind of went on a bunny trail there. Let's go and look at the actual tool itself. And actually, before I do that, I want to look at the Discord. So here's kind of the way I'm setting up Discord now, just to make it a little bit easier and faster to access. Right now, I'm starting to post the links in the title so that if you open up the channel for the longs or shorts and you have access to the indicator, you can just click on that and click on the link, and it'll immediately open it for you. So that is one thing to, just take note of, whatever, if that's convenient for you. I'll start be doing that for all of the new releases. It is also important to note I am going through and clearing out some of the really, really old strategies. So if you are trading with something that is a super old indicator, I would check today and make sure it's still running, because there's a few that I've put updates out, and so it'd probably be better to switch to those newer updates. Just copy your settings over. Okay, I think that should be it. Oh, yeah. And the last thing is, so the Master Builder section down here is for people that are have purchased a lifetime for the bumper bands tools and indicators, and there are some nice little extras here. So I made an extra version, probably for every indicator, or most every indicator. I'll start making a secondary version for those who are lifetime members. A lot of times there'll be something about them that is at least intriguing to me. So I think was it on this one of these two? It just had a really, really small drawdown. Obviously, the profit and loss is, or the profit is smaller, but the drawdown is much smaller as well, and the profit factor is really nice, and the percent profitable is super nice. So, sometimes I'll post that for people that are lifetime members, just to have, something else. But if you are not a lifetime member, there's still plenty of really great tools to be accessing. I'll just kind of show you this. So yeah, over the last 5 years, is that what it is? Yeah, 5 years. Still just a really small drawdown and, pretty high profitable, almost 70% profitable, and really high profit factor, even at 6% commission. So something that, just might be nice. And it does take generally smaller, like quicker trades too. That's the other thing about this indicator. So something that's kind of nice to have out there. And but oops, did not mean to do that. That is just something for those members. Anyway, jumping back into here. Okay, let's keep going. So you got the max version that has the same kind of idea as the max of the BB30. It does not have the reliability AI section. I actually found on the 1 hour that section did not help too much. So that section was actually better on lower time frames. So I left it off of this indicator, and I actually have a different section down here at the bottom called the success-based learning system. So this basically tracks where entries and exits were and gives you a kind of a generally success. What am I trying to say here? It gives probabilities, and if the success-based learning is low, it will adjust the band. So for example, if it's tracking the trades and seeing that it's losing more trades, it will make some adjustments. And again, these are kind of just, if you have the skeleton key set up with other parts to it, like stop loss, or, I'm also going to put this back at something that's a little more realistic there. If you have other things like the weekday filter or stop loss, emergency risk, all these kind of things, it's not going to take those into account, obviously, because it does not have access to those. But if I was just to blindly, take the first green entry and the first red exit, that's what this system is looking at. You can see the drawdown actually did go way down, and the profit actually went up. I think the profit factor also went up a little bit. However, if I backtest this, it actually does worse when Bitcoin was super volatile before, 2015 to 2018, 2019. It did not do quite as well. It did have a nice slow and steady equity curve. I guess I'll go ahead and did not. Actually, I'm interested to see what it did. Yeah, so this was a much better drawdown here than before. The total profit and loss for those 2 months that we had just looked at before, I think it was 15% when it was on these settings over here. It was 15%, and I don't remember what the drawdown was because I was looking at the wrong thing. But it did do a lot better, obviously, in that February there. So it's, kind of a nice thing to have on maybe during bear markets, etc. However, during bull markets, it probably doesn't give you quite as much out of the bull market as you might be able to get other ways. So who knows? I mean, that's something that's there for anyone to mess with. I currently have left it off on the max version that I posted, and I probably am going, just to let you know, I'm probably going to simplify this section a bit more. And I'll when I find, kind of the exact settings I want to have there, I'll make a video about it and explain it a little bit more. But again, just kind of want to get this out into people's hands, let you guys mess with it. If you find something super useful, super interesting, feel free to let me know. But yeah, just wanted to give a quick warning. Some of these things may change, and if you are building strategies that is really reliant on those, you should probably let me know, just so I at least have that. And I still may have to change them because I'm trying to build these tools that are most efficient and effective for all users. But yeah, that's just the general idea. Okay, the things that are different about the AI Max, obviously, is that section I just looked at there. And then the support and resistance validation section are much more in depth. And I may end up adding some of this stuff to the 30 minutes as well, or the BB30 as well. But this uses some extra sections, and I will go through on a different video and talk about those. But if you are interested in those, you can look at the tooltips, and I try to give a pretty fast but decent explanation of what those are doing. The validity section is basically the same. The trending section, I think, is pretty much the same as the other version, the BB30 version. And that's pretty much it. So, obviously there's a lot of sections and boxes here, but when you wrap your head around it, it's actually a pretty simple thing. You kind of just have to take it section at a time. The other thing I will note is the BB30 actually is pretty incredible right off the bat if you change to a different, like Solana or XRP. The way that the BB1H is designed is much more with Bitcoin in mind specifically. Maybe down the road I will look at adding some sections and some parts to it that will make it more like trade better across assets. But if you are interested in using it across assets, you'll just probably have to go into these sections and change them a little bit more dramatically than you might the BB30. That's just part of the way that it worked out, and so that is that there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention before we go here. I mean, I think if you guys have been trading, I guess one other thing I was going to mention was just kind of look at the really recent dates here. Let's see, 2025. Let's go to today and just kind of see what this strategy has done over the last 2 months. So yeah, it is interesting. Oh, that's what I was gonna kind of look at. Okay, yeah. So the past few months, decent amount of profit is kind of actually following Bitcoin to a T. Didn't quite have as bad of a pullback there, and doesn't quite have as much net gain in the count if you were just holding. However, with funding fees, this is actually something someone brought up the other day, I think in the quantum wave bands. Funding fees are a real thing. So if you're holding for months, your funding fees are going to add up pretty fast. And so if you're holding at leverage, funding fees will eat away at your profits, just really fast. So I guess the upside to trading a strategy is you have less funding fees to worry about. And if you're trading inverse perpetuals, you can kind of take advantage of the moves of Bitcoin and the move of the strategy together. Something that's interesting there. Okay, the last thing I was going to kind of look at was just a couple places where we had really bad pullbacks in the market. I think I mentioned before, I think I already looked at February through March, so that was this section right here. That's where Bitcoin pulled back like crazy, and the strategy pulled back pretty bad, but not as bad. Let's look at, let's see, June of 2020. I'll just look at through July. Yeah. So June through July, it says -4. So I'm going to try to back test this. I'm actually going to start with May through July of 2020. Just to kind of look at this section here. So I guess, overall, not quite as bad as Bitcoin did. It did have really, I guess 8% pullback is not too bad. All right, so that section's not too bad. Let's look at a couple other places where it looks like it did not do well, like 2022, January of 2022. So the reason I'm doing this is kind of just to show you guys what I kind of look at and think about when I am trading and getting ready to trade. I'll kind of get an idea of what the strategy did over what looks like the worst periods of time. Now, this chart here is a little bit inaccurate. As you can tell, like, let's see, it says January. Let me just get January, the month of January. It says it only had -1.3%. I guess, though, the strategy says it's only -0.33, so that's a little bit better. But it did have a drawdown of, I guess, 6%. Not too bad. Is this with AI section on? Oh, it's with the AI section on. That's why. Okay. I'm going to try this again with it off. Yeah, okay. So it's a little bit worse with that AI section off there. Max drawdown is 10%, and I keep on looking at total P&L instead of max drawdown. That's so dumb. I want to look at it with it on now. It was 10%, and now it's 6%. So yeah, it definitely that section does seem to make the drawdowns a little bit better, which is kind of nice. However, again, this is a very new thing, so take it take it as it is and at your own risk. And definitely, I would monitor it to make sure it's trading as you think it should be trading. So, all right, got a little distracted there. I feel like this video was a bit all over the place, but hopefully this is in some way helpful to those out there trading. And if you have any questions, let me know. If you are interested in using this indicator and don't have it, I have a Patreon link in the description below, and you have to be a part of the complete tier to access these tools. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.